Welcome to the final component of the intro to balance sheet series that I've put together. So remember, this is introductory. It's not for people who have a strong accounting or bookkeeping background that have, compiled and created balance sheets on their own. This is for people who are just getting started, perhaps students and absolutely business owners who are receiving these reports and perhaps need a little bit more guidance just in what exactly you're looking at. And when you understand what it is that you're looking at, then you're able to ask questions of not only your advisors that are preparing this information for you, but also all of the individuals that impact the information that you see, your vendors, your customers, suppliers, banking associates, anybody that impacts your business. Somehow you'll find a representation of them within these financial statements. And that's really the takeaway for anybody that's taking the time to go through these video series, is that you're able now to ask some questions, get a little bit more information, and the ultimate goal is always to be able to make better decisions for the business. If you've watched parts 1 and 2, we've already gone through the asset sections of the balance sheet, and we've gone through the liability section of the balance sheet, and our last piece today is going to be what we call the equity section of the balance sheet. So now, depending on whether or not you're a sole proprietor, whoever prepares your statements might call it an owner's equity. If you are an incorporated company, then we'll call it shareholders equity, but the idea is the same. In essence, what you're going to find in this part of the balance sheet is really the overall accumulated worth of your business. And where you're going to see that is in the retained earnings section. So with this particular business, it's a sample that's built upon an actual client that I had. They had multiple losses year over year, which is why this number is a negative. So the story that this will tell you is, if this is a negative number, then you're obviously operating in a loss position year over year. And if you have a $10,000 loss one year and another 5,000 next year, then you'll see this retained earning number be a negative 15. So it's going to accumulate. If you go back to the first video that I posted, part 1, I explained that the balance sheet is a report that continues forward. We don't wipe the balances to zero like we do with the income statement, which is just on a period per period basis. The balance sheet is different. It will show you a rolling amount going forward, the operations of your business. So what I would love for you to develop a strong sense of understanding is that when you receive or you're reviewing your balance sheet, that you pay attention to this retained earning figure. It will give you the trend. It will give you that sense of, one question that I get asked a lot is, I'm working so hard. And especially if you're not really able to draw steady pay, if you have a lot of fluctuation in how much you're being able to pay yourself, looking at this retained earning number will answer that question of, has all of this work been worth it? And often in time, you will get the answer to this question by looking at this retained earnings figure. Whether you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years in, this is where you're really going to see the value for your effort. So in this particular case, if we just try to run through a very simple example, the prior year's accumulated impact on the business was a net loss of 29,250. Okay, so not really operating profitably, lots of struggles getting to this point. But then we look at the current year earnings. So you always want to make sure that when you receive this information, you have it broken out like this as well. It's very easy, for people just to kind of be sloppy and cut shortcuts or create shortcuts and just lump it all together as one number. But again, ask for the visibility. Ask for where you were at the end of the prior year, which was a loss. But I want to see my current earnings, and this number ties into the income statement. So whatever your final income state net income amount is, rolls up into this calculation, and you net the two together. And what you'll see here is that finally this business was able to generate a profit that puts its overall total retained earnings at a plus 3,500. So the owner or shareholders of this business could now look at this company and say, finally, we've broken out of that rut of losses. Whatever we did in the current year, let's see if we can hopefully duplicate that for the next period and then continue on this trend towards now creating positive value, continuous profits, and hopefully that means that you've figured out the strategies that work for your customers and your base, and all the kinks hopefully have been worked out and you're on that path to that success for your business. And that's really and truthfully how you have to review this equity section. And again, the top component here only relates if you are an incorporated company where there are shareholders. You'll see the information about the shares issued and outstanding in this particular section. But what's really key and what's really going to tell the story and answer that question about the effort that I get so often in time is going to be found right here in this retained earnings component. So it's, particular, this video is briefer than the others, but I want to make sure that you're able to really understand what it is that these numbers represent, because I think a lot of people kind of don't ask the right questions about these figures. What's included, how do we figure it out, and again, the story and the questions that they answer, which is, cumulatively for the years that I've been in business, what has been the value of it? If you're happy with just the payment of the bills and trying to receive a check whenever possible, wonderful. But if you want to know if this is the path that you should stay on or if you need to switch gears, you're going to get a lot of those answers within this component of the balance sheet. So hopefully that makes good sense to you. Again, these are simplified and stripped down versions of these statements that I want to provide so that they speak to the masses and not just for people who are well versed in accounting or bookkeeping. And if you do have questions, you can reach me at www.balancethefive.com, Twitter, Instagram, all at balance the five, and drop a comment here on YouTube as well. Good luck to all.